door. Today my topic is what is in your house. But before that, let me just give a little backstory. So something, you can keep playing, Dory. Something I began to realize about myself, and in turn about others, is that you don't realize the value of what you had just because you've always had it. You know, I'm personally an admirer of gifts and talents. When I see someone who can do something that I can't do or has something that I don't have, I'm just always in awe. I think that person is so blessed. But then they'd look at me and say, Jessica, look what you're doing. It's so amazing. But I'd be like, I'm just talking. You know, whatever words come to my head, I write them down and hope for the best. But to others, that's not just talking. So I decided that getting used to something can be a blessing and a curse, because sometimes you forget its value and how to use it when it's needed. So about this topic, I was preparing for this speech, and I asked God, just give me a bit of insight, but nothing was coming to mind because I was confused about the topic. Shut the door, which usually happens with all the Night with King topics. Like last year was by this time tomorrow, and for like majority of the month I didn't know what anyone was talking about. But as you kept praying and discussing about it, I finally understood. And that same thing happened for this, but I still didn't have any inspiration. And then we started nearing the program, and I started panicking, and I was like, Jessica, you're just gonna read the verse and let God do the rest. So that's what I did. And there was one verse that caught my eye. So let's go to 2 Kings 4. I'll read verse 1 and 2. And it says, Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thine handmaid had not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. What hast thou in the house? What do you have? What is in you? What is in your house? Now, what a silly question. You know, I am a widow. I'm in debt. My son and I will probably starve to death, and we have no money. You think the first place I didn't check was my house? I have nothing but a pot of oil. I have nothing but the ability to interpret dreams. I have nothing but a stone. I have nothing but my hair. I have nothing but my voice. I have nothing but a pen. I have nothing, but I have something. What is in your house? Now, being any type of speaker or preacher, you have to read. You have to know about others. And for a long time, I thought that I couldn't read about others because if I took what they said, it would be plagiarism. But as it comes to time, you learn that you can't grow without learning from others. And from my reading, I found that there's 3 things that usually hinder people from achieving something. And that is pride, ignorance, and lack of action. And only because the woman in this verse didn't fully display these things, she was able to experience the abundance of what was in her house. Now, firstly, pride. Pride is a killer, and a killer that kills you alone because you were too proud to ask for help. Now, I may be overanalyzing this verse, but the first thing I noticed that the woman, the first thing she did, she went to ask for help. Because she knew she was in a pretty bad situation. She was in debt, and she has a son, and she wasn't going to allow pride to keep her from getting the help she needed, because she knew that's what got them into that situation and was going to keep them in it. Because let me ask you a question. What stopped her husband from asking for help? He knew Elisha. He was close to Elisha. But in the end, he died. He left his wife and child in debt. Why? Pride. At this point, you should know that my favorite person in the Bible is Joseph. You can just learn so much from him. He was put into a prison unfairly, and there he saw 2 people, and he saw they were sad, the butler and the baker. And they said they were having troubling dreams. Now, if it were me and I was put into prison for something I didn't do, I would be bitter, but not Joseph. He saw these people needed help, so he helped them. And so then he interpreted their dreams. And it says in Genesis 40:14, But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. Remember me, help me. Because Joseph knew that it didn't matter where he came from or how high he thought he was, he needed man. There was a month last year where Pastor preached on the wealth called man. And it brought to my attention that God uses man to lift us. God uses man to catapult us, man meaning male and female. The butler remembered Joseph, but that doesn't just happen. People don't just remember you. God puts you into remembrance because he uses man to lift us, but unless we accept the help man can give us, we remain where we are and we die to the killer called pride. So Joseph needed the butler, the woman needed Elisha, and you need man. So the first thing she did was ask for help. I'm running out of time, but I'll keep going. And Elisha said unto her, and after she asked for help, Elisha said unto her, what should I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, thine handmaid had not anything in the house save a pot of oil. So we talked about pride. You need to know where you are and what you need. Now let's talk about ignorance. You need to know what you have. And this woman, although she knew what she had, she didn't know the value of it. Her pot of oil was a part of her nothing. But Elisha knew that was her something. But you need to know what you have, because what you have is what you need to save yourself. What you have is what you need to elevate yourself. How? Because God will never leave you in a place where you don't already have what you need to get to where you need to be. So, if you don't know what you have and what it's meant for, it's pretty useless. It's like being sick and having medicine, but not using it because you don't know why it's there. It's like being thirsty and having water, but you don't drink it, so you remain thirsty because you don't know why it's there. But the truth is, God doesn't want you to go through the problem before you realize the solution. He wants you to know the solution before the problem, because he said, my people are not destroyed because of problems. They're destroyed because of lack of knowledge. So ignorance is bliss, but it's not if it keeps you in a stagnant state, whether or not you insist, because you don't know what you have. That's why Ephesians 1:18, where it says God should open the eyes of your understanding, is so important, because you need to apply your understanding to the knowledge you have in order to bet action, which is my last point. You need action. The woman got help. She knew what she had, but none of this matters if she didn't do something. She has the components, but in order to get a reaction, she needed action. So it says 2 Kings 4:3-4. Then he said, go borrow the vessels abroad all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and thou shalt pour into all these vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. She had what she needed. She knew what she needed to do, but until she shut the door, none of it mattered. So shut the door. You know, shutting the door can have different interpretations. It's not just physically shutting the door. It can mean shutting the door to lack, to failure, to rejection, shutting the door of a past season so you can go into your next one. But for me in this time, shutting the door means action. I'm tired of staying in one place looking for the way forward when in my house, in me is what I need to succeed, is what I need to be elevated. But I left the door open to pride, to ignorance, to excuses. It's time to shut the door and to get to work. Because just as they say, faith without works is dead. Knowledge and understanding without action is useless. So shut the door, because what you need is in your house. But firstly, what is in your house? Hallelujah.